Guten Tag, WAP. This is Mr. Linegar. Let's make history today as we go over Unit 2, Day 3. Today we're going to talk about some of the cultural, intellectual changes in Western Europe during the early modern period. We'll talk about the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, mainly. But let's get started with our daily punishment. Becoming a vegetarian is one big mistake. Mistake. Your key terms for today are the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, Mary Wollstonecraft, Johannes Kepler, Galileo Galilei, Isaac Newton, Voltaire, Jean Locke, the Baron de Montesquieu, and deism. We're going to go over the intellectual developments in Western Europe during the early modern period. So during the early modern period, 1450 to 1750, we will see mass culture arise. Mass culture is common culture in Western Europe. The use of some luxuries will become more common. You'll have leisure time where people are able to just enjoy themselves and have fun, even for poorer people. You'll see the rise of professional entertainment. For example, tennis, theater, for example, Shakespearean theater, music, Baroque music, classical music, dun 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 dun, dun 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 dun. No, Beethoven, Bach. You'll see agricultural changes in Western Europe, draining of swamps, animal breeding, new farming techniques. We'll have the whole Columbian Exchange. So you'll see some new world food crops like potatoes going to Europe. You'll see the rise of manufacturing at the very end of this unit. You'll see the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And because of that, you'll see new social classes. You'll see an entrepreneurial class, business middle class, technological managerial class, we call them. You'll see the rise of urban rural working class. Sometimes they're called the working poor or the proletariat. They're paid low wages and horrible working conditions. They're at mercy of price revolutions, inflation. There'll be a big population growth. And because of that, a lot of people will move into the cities and we'll have urbanization. And the cities will have problems with disease, crime, increased poverty. During the time of the Protestant Reformation, there'll be peasant rebellions. This will happen especially during the Protestant Reformation, where there were some major peasant revolts. The nuclear family is going to be strengthened by capitalism. Families will become more independent economically, socially, and emotionally. And at this time, people will start to get married for the idea and the concept of love between man and woman. Gender issues are going to fluctuate during this time period in Western Europe. The Renaissance will see the expansion of women's rights. Some of the intellectuals in the Renaissance will be women. There'll be more educational opportunities. The Reformation, however, will take back many of these rights. Protestants will emphasize the role of women in being in charge of the family, taking a backseat to man. Even though Martin Luther, when he started Lutheranism, will marry a former nun, Catherine. She will be very famous at the time, but for the most part, Protestantism will be patriarchal, and so is Catholicism. But yeah. There'll be witch hunts in Europe after the Protestant Reformation, done by both Catholics and Protestants. The Reformation will feed hysteria about witches and devil worship. 60,000 people will be executed for witch hunts. 95% of them are women. That's over a long period of time, but still. During the capitalist revolution and the commercial revolution, many women merchants were very successful. You will see women start to be more educated. It was one of the few avenues open to women. Aristocratic women were often educated. Once we get to the Enlightenment in the 1700s, it's one of the first victories for women's rights. Women often ran the salons where the intellectuals met and would discuss the new Enlightenment literature. Many were very prominent philosophers like Madame de Staël and Mary Wollstonecraft. Mary Wollstonecraft was from England, and she wrote A Vindication on the Rights of Women, pushing for women's rights and women's equality. So you will see towards the end of this, women starting to step out of the shadow of men and pushing for equality. The first big intellectual movement we're going to talk about that happens is the scientific revolution. The scientific revolution is going to be a lot of new scientific discoveries happening in the 15, 16, 1700s in Western Europe using reason. One of the first people to do this was Copernicus. Copernicus came up with the idea of the Copernican theory that the Earth revolves around the sun. Before this time, people were following the Ptolemaic theory that the sun revolves around the Earth. One of the people that's going to push for Copernicus's ideas is Galileo Galilei. He's actually going to be arrested by the Catholic Church by the Catholic Inquisition. And he's going to have to recant his ideas, his scientific ideas, in order to prevent being killed. There'll be other scientists during this time, like Johannes Kepler, who will demonstrate planetary orbits and ellipticals. One of the biggest people is Isaac Newton. He's going to focus on the idea of math. He's considered the father of calculus, the father of physics. He used math to explain universal laws. He came up with the idea of gravity, the theory of gravity. Newton's work is going to symbolize the scientific revolution using direct observation and mathematical reasoning. Here are just some of the different inventions during this time. Thermometer, telescope, theory of gravity, compound microscope, glasses, heliocentric theory. Good stuff. One of the last movements that's going to really start in the 1700s and is going to have a huge influence on Western Europe and later the Americas, and leading to political and economic revolutions, is the Enlightenment. Enlightenment philosophers were called philosophers. They're going to seek natural laws that govern society, and they're going to try to use human reason to how to make society better and use rationality to create the best form of government, the most rational form of government, the most rational economic system. Enlightenment philosophers were positive, they were optimistic. They thought there was a theory of progress that was constantly going forward. And they tried to apply reason and science to society through government and law. One of the fathers of the Enlightenment was Voltaire. He's going to focus on religious liberty and individual freedom. He's going to influence the First Amendment in America. Another one is John Locke. He came up with the idea of natural rights, that in the state of nature, you have natural rights, life, liberty, and property. He also helped publish the English Bill of Rights. John Locke said that if your natural rights were taken away from you, you have a right to rebel against the government. This is called the social contract theory. Adam Smith was an economic person from the Scottish Enlightenment. He comes up with the idea of supply and demand, that the best way to have a strong economy is for the government not to regulate the economy. That way people, since they want to make more money, will create better businesses. There'll be competition between businesses, and it's going to lead to cheaper prices, more competition, and better products. He's the father of capitalism. He wrote this in The Wealth of Nations. The Baron de Montesquieu was interested in trying to prevent one branch of government becoming more powerful than the other. So he's really the father of checks and balances and separation of power. A lot of the Enlightenment philosophers believed in deism. Deism believes that there is a God or some kind of higher power, but they believe God is a clockmaker. He creates the universe, but he's not actually involved in the world. There's not like these miracles. Miracles are ridiculous. No burning bush, no God speaking from the heavens. It's a very naturalistic God that created the universe and then leaves man to his plight. An example of deism is what Thomas Jefferson from the Declaration of Independence did. Thomas Jefferson actually rewrote the New Testament. He just got rid of all the miracles that Jesus did and just kept Jesus's teachings. Jefferson liked Jesus, but he thought his miracles were ridiculous. Jefferson was a deist. He was a son of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment will weaken the influence of organized religion. The Enlightenment is not necessarily anti-religious, but it is definitely very secular. This right here just shows a little chart on the social contract theory, the roles of government and the role of the people, and when they're able to rebel. All right, guys, that's all I have for you for today. Until next time, deuces. Deuces, deuces.